Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing why don't Thais need a pile of documents? And the reason I'm making this video, it's kind of an anecdotal piece here. Living in Thailand is kind of an interesting experience. It's definitely been an interesting one for me where I've started out as really kind of a shoestring foreigner, only to over time kind of build up and become more permanently based here, and then eventually I became a citizen where now I'm just here. It's my home. And there are things that I take for granted now that I didn't when I look back in retrospect. And something just kind of tickled me the other day. We were assisting a client with banking. And it was a corporate matter. We were setting up a company for the company, and I just happened to be going to the bank at the same time. So my staff was assisting this person in getting all their documentation in order with respect to getting a bank account open, things like corporate bank account, corporate checking accounts, things like this. And I was dealing with some corporate stuff too. It happened to be at the same bank, and I was talking to the client, and they only asked me for my Thai ID card. And they took my Thai ID card and did what they needed to do with it, and we were pretty well done. And the client, now obviously the client was opening an account and dealing with some things associated with all of that. So there's obviously going to be more documentation. But the difference was plain, and he turned to me and said, "Why don't you need a pile of documents? Why don't Thais need a pile of documents?" And I answered, I said, "Yeah, I'm Thai." And then he said, "Why don't Thais need a pile of documents?" And well, one of the big reasons for this is Thai's pile of documents really kind of are embedded in the Thai ID card. There's a whole slew of documentation associated with being a Thai. Don't ever have the misconception that only foreigners are dealing with a bunch of paperwork in Thailand. Thais do too. It's different insofar as they don't really have to carry it all around with them at all time. Well, when they're dealing with banking or the government, because it's all in their card primarily. There are exceptions to this. If you're dealing, for example, if you're moving house books, yeah, you've got to deal with a bunch of paperwork to do that. Sometimes when you're getting a passport, they may want to see some extra documentation on top of a Thai ID card, although frankly, it hasn't proven to be an issue since the first passport I got, where they wanted to see my nationality certificate and some other things. And then after that, it really hadn't been a problem. But it is kind of interesting. Foreigners probably look at Thais and are like, "Oh, you don't have to do any of this." Well, in point of fact, they actually do have to jump through most of the same hoops. It's just all those hoops are sort of embedded in this card, and they just sort of deal with it all in one swipe, basically.